Hello and welcome to the Extraordinary Living Podcast. I'm Andrew Downey, and today we're talking about success and money. Um, in the money section, money is very clearly defined of what it is, but it isn't taught in culture. It's something that, for some reason, people just don't know actually even what money is and what the real purpose of it is. And so we're going to cover that. Success, on the other hand, is, um, it's individually defined. But the two of them for most people are significantly like interwoven. So I'm going to talk for a little bit of time today about success and money. So when we're optimizing our life, I would generally say um, that there are a number of steps that are primary to um, really integrating a fantastic or extraordinary life. And it goes a bit like this, is that the first step is that you need to have a primary aim. A primary aim is like your understanding of why you're on the planet. Because if you know why you're on the planet, then you can tell when you're on track and when you're off track. And that's a primary first step. We've got to live inside of our integrity. Different people are going to integrity for them is going to mean something a little bit different. So I'm not judging people on the morality or their integrity, but they need to live within their own integrity and allow that integrity to morph as time goes on. The tendency is for some people's integrity to narrow as time goes on, and for other people, their integrity will broaden as they become more wise. Um, I would say that everybody wants to make legitimate progress in your direction and in a reasonable amount of time. I don't. Life is a marathon, and it's going to have many chapters, maybe many volumes of the book that you're writing. And but we do need to hold ourselves accountable. We don't need to be in a hurry, but we do need to make progress, and it needs to be measurable progress. And we want to harmonize these different dimensions. So these different dimensions are the different arenas of life. And that little graphic there stands for spiritual, mental, physical, money, family, career, social, and emotional. And those are just the different arenas of life. And we want to harmonize that. You want to hold yourself accountable in each of these areas, because if you're not paying attention to all of these areas, and I'm not saying that you need to pay attention to all of the areas all of the time, I'm just saying that they all need to be addressed. And unfortunately, if you neglect any of them, they're going to cause constitutional problems within you, your psychology, the life that you're living. And so you just need to be attentive to it. And I recognize that it's very common for somebody to like really focus on their career, really focus on money, really focus on family at a specific point in time. That happens a lot. And so then maybe they neglect themselves a little bit emotionally and spiritually and mentally. Maybe they don't study as much because they're moving their career forward or whatever that happens to be. But I just want people to call themselves on paying attention to each of these as time goes on, and to work on all of those dimensions. And I would always recommend that your relationship with your body is very primary. And the more, if you happen to listen to me at all, then I'm going to be asking you to get your hands on your body and be inwardly connected, and pay attention to that body wisdom inside, that inner voice. And it will have tremendous impacts on all of the different arenas of life. And so, most of this talk comes from um, the optimizing money section in the Wellness Mastery program that I produced over the years. And so this is a bit about success and money. And so people generally live in three different domains, and they'll kind of slide back and forth between these things. People jump around. Sometimes they're in the land of the ordinary and the known. Sometimes they're in the land of the extraordinary. Sometimes they're in the land of the magical. And the way that a person lives a lot of times is they'll have these kinds of thought patterns about um, how to achieve success. So, a person living in the land of the ordinary, I'm talking about consciousness, that they're living in the ordinary and the known domains of consciousness. They're not living the extraordinary life all the time. They're not living the magical life. And the our consciousness exists on a continuum through all kinds of different states of consciousness. And it seems to me that Western culture puts a lid on consciousness that's kind of like right in between the land of the ordinary and the land of the extraordinary. And so I'll dig into that more as time goes on. But typically, in the land of the ordinary, people, when they look at success and achieving success, the tendency will be that um, they're pretty okay with manipulation of the environment and others. So they're willing to manipulate the environment, they're willing to manipulate others, and that one must achieve insulation from unwanted events and circumstances. And so, what that really means is that they're really interested in control all of the variables. And that's how people are um, classically trained inside of Western culture. And then in the land of the extraordinary, people will take consistent, massive action while honoring self, others, and the environment. They're going to take care of the planet. They're going to take care of themselves. They're going to take care of their business partners. You know, they create win-win-win situations. They're not really willing to produce a chemical that's going to kill a bunch of fish in, you know, some river system. They're not, that they would just choose to go about it in a different way because they're not interested in creating harm while they create success for themselves or for their company, for their family, whatever the situation happens to be. But the central pattern generator is consistent, massive action while being honoring of the other systems that they're affecting. In the land of the magical, it's very similar, but they're more sensitive to the timing and the rhythms of themselves and nature around them. There's obviously a very real, intimate relationship between a person and knowing themselves and knowing when is the right time to do something. Maybe you're right. Maybe you know that you're supposed to do something, but maybe the timing isn't right. And so you maybe need to wait a little bit. But when that gateway of opportunity opens and the timing feels right, then you're right on top of it, taking the action necessary. So the general theme of this is effortless effort, because you're not going to be existing in the land of the magical in an organic way without having capacity to be inwardly directed, be really care about what it is that you produce from a community basis. Like you're going to impact something that's meaningful. It's going to feel on purpose with your primary aim, and you have the capacity to take massive action. You're sensitive to the rhythm and the timing of things, and that's where we can like significantly leverage capacity to like move forward at very fast rates. And that's one of the things that's really kind of neat about the difference between the land of the magical and the land of the extraordinary, is that the land of the extraordinary has a lot of push involved. And that's fine. That's a wonderful human capacity, but it's really nice to just have a lot of smoothness involved and a lot of, if you get the timing right of things, then things happen with a lot less push. And so that's why the theme of effortless effort is is uh, is there. When I've been looking at success over the years, for how I personally define it, um, what I would recommend is that a person has developed systems, whether it's a business system, a system of running a family, the relationship to running your personal health, whatever. Success is going to be defined by the individual, but it has some characteristics that if you have integrated systems, you have systems that you follow, and you run those systems through a healthy body, a healthy family, or a healthy business corporation, right? So if you have systems that move through a healthy or organization, whether that's autonomously just like you and your body, or whether that's your business structure or your family, it doesn't matter. But having systems that move through a healthy organization or individual, moving towards a primary aim, right? So systems moving through health, towards a primary aim, whether that's the primary aim of the family, the primary aim of the individual, the primary aim of the business or corporation. We're going to be able to access our definition of success better. And a lot of this stuff is going to be driven by passion, like the energy that you have to pass on yourself or your mission, whatever that happens to be. And um, you know, success very much is having grace and strength, right? Having a heart and a spine at negotiating life's unpredictability and variety while living up to your highest vision of yourself. This is some of the real clear pathways to success. A primary aim is something that is difficult and it's important, that will help a lot of people. Like when I'm coaching people inside of you know, if somebody takes me on as their mentor, or they're listening to me because of my wellness mastery class or whatever it happens to be, I'm very interested in community service and making a difference. And I definitely don't care, and the angels don't care either, how somebody contributes and makes a difference. But if we're moving humanity forward, that's what matters. I'm not talking about coming from some forceful standpoint or creating some sort of totalitarian thing and like trying to force other people to do your will. That's not what it's about. It's about creating things that are moving culture forward in the way that in the way that you deem fit, that doesn't cause harm and doesn't utilize forcing anybody to do anything. So I don't care whether you're planning a community garden, building a garden, raising children, doing your best to make the next generation of wonderful humans. I don't care if you're running some sort of a business, whatever it happens to be, but if you believe it's for the betterment of the planet and you're not imposing force, then that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm advocating for. So anyway, it needs to be something that's difficult and important because it's going to take time to do it. And so that lasting purpose is what's going to matter. You don't want to, if you set goals that are too easily attained, then you're just going to have to reinvent what you're doing later on. You're probably going to do that anyway because you're probably going to achieve things and then redefine yourself. And you're going to change as the world, as you move forward and those kinds of things. But generally, if it's something difficult and important to you that's going to help a lot of people, you want to take on that burden because it's what's going to make your life meaningful. You're going to have a really positive relationship with dopamine and serotonin and your own personal drives and these kinds of things. So it stays on the up and up, and it can be enduring. And at the end of the day, you'll feel the life fulfilled, right? And I think that those are some of the goals for, a lot of us anyway. And so when we're looking at the domain of money, right, that wheel up there, once again, it stands for the different dimensions of life: spiritual, mental, physical, money, family, career, social, and emotional. What I want people to know is that poverty is not the driver of misery. So when we're talking about money, it's really good to understand that really good research has been done. And if you look at communities, I used to live in Chile, and so it's, we got to live in and amongst a lot of very impoverished people. And it's not really the lack of money and the lack of resources that creates misery. What it is the misery is driven by inequality. That when people see other people having more than they have, and there's no way for them to utilize their resourcefulness and get the resources, that's when people become despondent, miserable, and these kinds of things. And so misery is driven largely by inequality. And so then we humans, being so compassionate, we really want to drive equality. The problem is that if you induce force into the equation, then you're going to brew all kinds of other problems. And so we as humans, we're looking to create a more level playing field, and we want to create um, the opportunity for equality. If people put the effort in, we want to lift people up that struggle with being able to lift themselves up. We really struggle with that as a species. And once again, totalitarian regimes, whether they come from the political left or the political right, are not going to be sustainable. And so we just need to work through the spiritual challenge of people being able to create more equality, but without the induction of force. And so that's one of the pieces that I wanted to cover in this program. And and so I want people to understand that there's a difference between resources, right? Resources are the money that's available to you, your IQ, your own personality style, where you happen to be geographically born into this existence. If you're born into California, by and large, it's easier to feel a sense like life is probably a bit easier than if you're born in Angola or the Ivory Coast, or if you're born in a really oppressive culture. So, resources are things that are generally not your control. It's not under your control, your IQ. It's not under your control where you're born. It's not under your control what your parents are like. Parents can be a lovely resource because maybe they're very loving and caring, and they have plenty of cash laying around, and there's plenty of love in the household. These are all wonderful, wonderful resources that enable a person, give them higher likelihood of success in the world. And so there's a lot of resources that are just not up to you as an individual. But the other thing is the other aspect. So these are resources, right? The other thing is resourcefulness, and resourcefulness speaks to the quality of human spirit, of what can you do when your back is against the wall, or whether times are tough or times are good. You have this innate capacity of resourcefulness and ingenuity and creativity, and all of that stuff varies from person to person. But when that quality of resourcefulness is a super beautiful human quality. And so I want people to understand that there's a difference between resources and resourcefulness. Life is not a level playing field. The cards that all of us individuals are dealt are, it's not the same hand that we're playing. Sometimes you show up in life and you've got just all aces, man. Life is really set up really easy for you. And sometimes it's, you've got a real crap hand that you're being dealt. And I personally have, and maybe you've seen it this way also, is that some of the people that are dealt a real crap hand in life, they've turned out to be the best people, very successful, and it's a lot of that difficulty, but they mind a lot of their own resourcefulness to deliver them to the successful, fulfilled adult that they are. And at the same time, we've also seen that people that are just dealt a fantastic hand in life is that they just squandered that opportunity and, turned out to be a real shit of a person and, whatever that happens to be. So we have those two things. You know, and of course, it's also true that somebody could be dealt a real crappy hand and they turn out really crappy. And of course, we have the situation be that sometimes people are dealt a really fantastic hand in life and they turn out fantastic. So just wanted to draw out a little bit of the differences between resources and resourcefulness. Um, I would say that you can, as an individual, you can access greater and greater powers to your creativity and your resourcefulness. Just whether you're listening to Tony Robbins um, audio files or videos, you listen to other inspiring people like Jim Rohn, or there's so many of them. You can be motivated by Joe Rogan or any of the ex-Navy SEALs that are all on the podcasting thing right now. They can inspire you to be creative and utilize your resourcefulness. And so you can access these things, but you can also access it just by getting your hands on your body and breathing in a coordinated fashion. You put your hands on your body and you breathe and you notice where it's easy, where it's difficult, and you just kind of play with it and work with it a little bit. And you'll find that you make real progress in knowing yourself, knowing what your deeper desires are. And it has another side benefit of enabling you to do that. And so there are many ways to garner more resourcefulness. Like I just didn't touch on very many of them. You can do it through yoga, weight training, long distance running. The list is very, very long. I want people to be real with themselves regarding their development in the domains of physical, emotional, and mental health, and taking congruent action. Like be real with yourself. What are your capacities? What are your limitations? It's wonderful to take a multidimensional IQ test and recognize that, like for me personally, I have a little bit above average IQ in 4 dimensions, but 2 of the dimensions I have lower than average IQ. And these are good to know so that in those dimensions, I can understand why I might be a little bit slow in those, in being able to work with myself and move my life forward, because these are some of the pitfalls that I personally have. And I can't raise my IQ in those kinds of things, but I can be more tolerant of some of my shortcomings. And then I can also leverage some of the stuff that I'm a little bit more capable than most at. So knowing yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, understanding these things so that you can work with yourself, I'm a real advocate for. I think it's valuable to assess if your career is in alignment with your primary aim. I mean, if your career, if what you're doing for money um, is not in alignment with your primary aim, my deepest hope for you is that it doesn't work. My hope is that you just can't find success inside of that which is not in alignment with why you're on the planet. I understand that temporarily that stuff can be valuable just so that you can pay some bills and get through, maybe if you're getting through college or whatever, but it could, you know, just ultimately, if you know that what you do for money is out of alignment with why you're on the planet, my hope is that you struggle, so that then those, you can use those symptoms and those difficulties of your life to nudge you to get on track with yourself, because in the long term you'll be much happier. And my real hope is that that doesn't sound harsh. My hope is that that comes across of like, oh yeah, actually that is what's best for somebody. So so we're talking right now about the construction, the manifestation of, you know, of what it is that you want, success, money wise, kind of stuff. And one of the this is actually like a real cool key to things, that in the creative process, and you knowing yourself and you knowing what you're good at. Are you a really good starter but you're not a very good finisher? You know, like, are you good with discipline? Can you do the step by step things? These all make a huge difference in manifesting. And I don't think I like that word very much, like manifestation principles, but being able to use your creative forces to bring something to your life and to integrate it. That's what manifesting is. But anyway, utilizing this creative force, you can break it down into three things. What's your intention? Are you clear about the intentions that you want to bring into your life? And then can you be attentive to the details? Can you be attentive to the details, one step after the next step after the next step with detail? My gosh, that's going to increase the probability of you bringing this thing into your life, right? You're responsible for the manifestation of it. If you are clear with your intention, you know what it is that you're attempting to do, you know what the goal is, and then you're attentive to the details. But here's the next one, is like, what are your expectations? And for some people, they need to work on one of these things, but being really clear about what your expectations are in the in your in your background world. Like, what you say can be one thing, but sometimes your deeper desires are something else. Like, I know, a lot of people, they're like little negative Nancy, right? Glass is half full. It's like, well, I really want to do this. That's their intention. And they're really good with the details. But in their background, it's always like, things always go sideways for me. Things don't really work out for me. Okay, so those are your expectations. So you want to really pay attention to your inner self and your inner dialogue about what your expectations are, because the formula for creation and bringing something into the world is, what is your intention? Are you able to be attentive to the details and take it step by step? And then what are your expectations? This is going to go really good. It's going to be really smooth. It's going to take a little bit longer than I expect. That's actually my expectations. When I do anything, it's like, this is going to have complications in it that I'm not expecting. I'm going to handle those things, whatever it happens to be, but I know that it's going to take me longer to create it than what I think. Those are my expectations, and that's how it is for me, right? But I also um, happen to integrate that stuff, and I create a lot of really amazing things. And so anyway, those are some tricks there that I wanted to pass on with this. So when we're taking a look at the structure of culture, so this is structure of culture, and it gets into how empires rise and fall. So when the industrialists, these are like the Rockefellers, the Morgans, right? The industrialists, the industrial capitalists that built out Western culture, America specifically, when the industrialists created the government education system, they chose to not teach about finance and money. They want obedient workers. That's what they want. Therefore, the most crucial elements of school to them, the people that developed government education, is they want people to be punctual. They want to be on time. They want people to be on time. They want people to follow directions, and they want people to have the ability to tolerate long hours of work and have the ability to read and write. They want obedient workers. They don't necessarily want the most empowered creative people that create lives where they're autonomous, from that they can get out from the shackles um, of just being ruled over. One of the big things that you can do when creating freedom, and it's not for everybody, but you can run your own businesses and these kinds of things. Whether you're part of a team that you love, that's fine. Whether you create your own thing that you love, that's fine. But working in a job that you don't like, having a career that you don't like, that's probably not going to deliver you to what you define as success and fulfillment. So many studies show that children learn by playing and following their interests. So I'm going to do a huge deep dive into that as I cover some of the more of the material from the child development program. So many studies show that children learn by playing and following their interests. Humans are naturally interested in learning, and if allowed to be free, they consume with interest. If you let people just, if you don't use some sort of top-down totalitarian push on them, then they don't rebel against the education. They'll naturally be involved, and they'll naturally, people are hungry for information. People love to learn. They don't necessarily like to be taught, but people are interested. We're like cats, man. We're curious creatures, right? So humans are naturally interested in learning, and if allowed to be free, they consume with interest the subjects that they're attracted to. And so from a parenting strategy, it's like one of the aspects of some of the homeschooling that we've done with our kids is like find out what they're interested in and then facilitate that, and then don't be attached to their follow through. So like when my kids got really interested in riding skateboards, then it's like we went down to the skate shop, we bought skateboards, and we were out at the skate park really regularly. We'd go out skating, and man, as a dad growing up in the 80s and skating, I mean, 3 to 5 hours a day, right? I used to be in competitions and all this kind of stuff. Having your two kids, they're like maybe 7 and 10 or whatever it is, and they're riding skateboards. It's like, man, that's so fantastic. But you give it a month, 2 months, and it's like, wow, Dad, this really hurts. Every time we go out, we get hurt and stuff. And so I had to be able to be really good at like letting go of all of that, because do I really want my kids hanging out with skaters all the time? Is that the subculture that I want them immersed in? There's really beautiful aspects of skate culture, and there's a real negative side of skate culture. So that's up to each person's individual. I struggled with it a little bit, but we got past it, and they, stopped doing it. But some of the other things that they were interested in, it really took hold. Like our youngest son, we noticed that he really liked to draw, and he's turned into a fantastic artist, just like our older son Kai. He really took to like ceramics, and he's taken a number of college courses in ceramics. He's produced dozens of incredible pieces of art. And so you just never know where their interests are going to go. And it's like, I really want to facilitate the best life for them in their terms. I don't necessarily want them to have the best life in my terms, right? It's like, how do we help them have the inner knowing and the strength to follow through with their aspirations so that they become the person that they want to become, rather than them becoming the person that I want them to become. Like that happens a lot in culture. I think that's a mistake for parents, right? I think, and it's all delicate, right? I'm clearly not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that these are all things that need to be weighed in the parenting side of things. So so this is a really neat slide. I really like this. It's like, the cultural myth is that money is the root of all evil. And a lot of people develop a lot of polarity to money because they think that money makes people evil. It's like, no, money gives you opportunities to do lots of good and have lots of fun. Like there's a lot of positive aspects of it, but so it's dangerous. That's dangerous philosophy to adopt the idea that money is the root of all evil, right? In the Bible, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. That's nicely refined, right? Like if you're really greedy and you really love money and that's the root of all evil, it's like, okay, well, that's better, but I love money, and, I don't think I'm all that evil. So, there's refinements of all this stuff. And Mark Twain says that the lack of money is the root of all evil. There's a lot of truth to that, right? When people just don't have enough money to have the things, man, life can be, really, really tough for them. Ayn Rand says, like, so you think money is the root of all evil. Well, have you ever asked what is the root of money? So like, hey, what is actually the root of money? And so this was written in 1957, and this is Francisco's Money's speech from Atlas Shrugged. So you think that money is the root of all evil, said Francisco. Have you ever asked what is the root of money? Money is a tool of exchange which can't exist unless there are goods produced and men able to produce them. Money is the material shape of the principle that men who wish to deal with one another must deal by trade and give value for value, right? People don't care about money. People don't care about money. People care about what they can do with money. Money is not the tool of moochers who claim your product by tears, or of the looters who take it from you by force. Money is made possible only by men who produce. Is this what you consider evil? Okay, so I'm going to read that again. Money is made possible only by the men who produce. So important. So as I'm talking about what money is, you may want to assume that you don't know what money is. Unless you've really studied money, you probably don't actually know what money is, which is a weird thing because we've all grown up with it, right? So when you accept money in payment for your effort, you do so only on the conviction that you will exchange it for the product of the effort of others. It is not the moochers or the looters who give value to money. Not an ocean of tears, nor all of the guns in the world can transform those pieces of paper in your pocket into the bread you will need to survive tomorrow. Those pieces of paper, which should have been gold, are a token of honor, your claim upon the energy of the men who produce, the people who produce, right? Your wallet is your statement of hope that somewhere in the world around you, there are men who will not default on the moral principle, which is root of money. Is this what you consider evil, right? It's the effort, it's the energy output of person. Have you ever looked for the root of production and take a look at electrical generator and dare tell yourself that it was created by the muscular effort of unthinking brutes? Try to grow a seed of wheat without the knowledge left to you by men who had to discover it for the first time. Try to obtain your food by means of nothing but physical motions, and you'll learn that man's mind is the root of all the goods produced and all of the wealth that has ever existed on earth. But you say that money is made by the strong at the expense of the weak. What strength do you mean? Is it not the strength of guns or muscles? Wealth is the product of man's capacity to think. When is money made by the man who invents a motor at the expense of those who did not invent it? Is money made by the intelligent at the expense of fools? By the ability at the expense of the incompetent? By the ambitious at the expense of lazy? Money is made before it can be looted or mooched, made by the effort of every honest man, each to the extent of his ability. An honest man is one who knows that he can't consume more than he has produced. To trade by means of money is the code of men of goodwill. Money rests on the axiom that every man is the owner of his mind and his effort. That is so important. You're the owner of your mind and your effort. Money allows no power to prescribe the value of your effort except the voluntary choice of the man who is willing to trade you his effort in return. Money permits you to obtain for your goods and your labor that which they are worth to the men who buy them, but no more. That's free market economics, right? Money permits no deal except those to mutually benefit by the unforced judgment of traders. Money demands of you the recognition that men must work for their own benefit, not for their own injury, for their gain, for their loss. The recognition that they are not beasts of burden born to carry the weight of your misery, that you must offer them values, not wounds, that the common bond among men is not the exchange of suffering, but the exchange of goods. Money demands that you sell not your weakness to men's stupidity, but your talent to their reason. It demands that you buy not the shoddiness they offer, but the best that your money can find. And when men live by trade with reason, not force, as their final arbiter, it is the best product that wins, right? The entrepreneur wins. The one that makes the best product wins. The best performance, the man of best judgment and highest ability. And the degree of a man's productiveness is the degree of his reward, right? Your value, not as a human being, but your value in money is what you bring to market and what other people voluntarily give you for your efforts. This, this is a code of existence whose tool and symbol is money. And is this what you consider to be evil? Right? Now we're starting to get an understanding of what money is. But money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as the driver. It will give you the means for the satisfaction of your desires, but it will not provide you with desires. Money is the scourge of men who attempt to reverse the laws of causality, the men who seek to replace the mind by seizing the products of the mind. Money will not purchase happiness for the man who has no concept of what he wants. Money will not give him a code of values. If he evaded the knowledge of what to value, and it will not provide him with a purpose, right? Life purpose, it matters so much. Money can't buy purpose. Money can't buy happiness, right? If he's evaded the choice of what to seek, money will not buy intelligence for the fool, or admiration for the coward, or respect for the incompetent. The man who attempts to purchase the brains of his superiors to serve him with his money, replacing his judgment, ends up by becoming the victim of his inferiors. The men of intelligence desert him, but the cheats and the frauds will come flocking to him, drawn by a law which he has not discovered, that no man may be smaller than his money. Is this the reason why you call it evil? Only the man who does not need it is fit to inherit wealth. The man who would make his own fortune, no matter where he started, right? That's resourcefulness. If an heir is equal to his money, it serves him. If not, it destroys him. But you look on and you cry that money corrupted him. Did it? Or did he corrupt his money? Do not envy a worthless heir. His wealth is not yours, and you have done no better with it. Do not think that it should have been distributed among you. Loading the world with parasites instead of one would not bring back the dead virtue, which was fortune. Money is a living power that dies without its root. Money will not serve the mind that cannot match it. Is this the reason why you call it evil? Money is your means of survival. The verdict you pronounce upon the source of your livelihood is the verdict you pronounce upon your life. If the source is corrupt, you have damned your own existence. Did you get your money by fraud, by pandering to men's vices or men's stupidity? By catering to fools in the hope of getting more than your ability deserves, by lowering your standards, by doing work you despise for purchasers you scorn? If so, then your money will not give you a moment or a penny's worth of joy. Then all the things you buy will become not a tribute to you, but a reproach, not an achievement, but a reminder of shame. Then you'll scream that money is evil, evil because it did not pinch hit for your self-respect, evil because it would not let you enjoy your depravity. This is the root of your hatred of money. Money will always remain an effect and refuse to replace you as the cause. Money is the product of virtue. It will, but it will not give you virtue, and it will not redeem your vices. Money will not give you the unearned, neither in matter nor in spirit. Is this the root of your hatred of money? Or did you say it's the love of money that's the root of all evil? To love a thing is to know and to love its nature. To love money is to know and to love the fact that money is the creation of the best power within you, and your passkey to trade your effort for the effort of the best among men. This is the person, it's the person who would sell his soul for a nickel, who is loudest in proclaiming his hatred for money. And he has good reason to hate it. The lovers of money are willing to work for it. They know they are able to deserve it. Let me give you a tip on a clue to men's character. The men who damns money and obtains it dishonorably, the man who respects it has earned it. Right? So we want to earn our money. If you just give people money, you're actually ripping them off. That's part of the power of this story. Run from your life from any man who tells you that money is evil. The sentence is the leper's bell of an approaching looter. So long as men live together on earth and need means to deal with one another, their only substitute, if they abandon money, is the muzzle of a gun, right? If you don't have the capacity to earn money and to use money, then you need to start utilizing force. So people that use force, you must understand that these are the people to generally stay away from. How is it that you can negotiate life with ease and with gentleness? You can be determined, that's fine, but the utilization of force is is should be outgrown. But money demands of you the highest virtues if you wish to make it or keep it. Men who have no courage, pride, or self-esteem, men who have no moral sense of their right to their money and are not willing to defend it as they defend their life, right? Right? Utilizing force to defend your life, defend loved ones. Okay, sure, right? They are natural bait for the swarms of looters that stay under rocks for centuries, but come crawling out at the first smell of a man who begs to be forgiven for the guilt of owning wealth. They will hasten to relieve him of the guilt and of his life as he deserves. Then you will see the rise of men for the double standard, the men who live by force, yet count on those who live by trade to create the value of their looted money, the men who are hitchhikers of virtue. In a moral society, these are the criminals, and the statutes are written to protect you against them. But when a society establishes criminals by right and looters by law, men who use force to seize the wealth of disarmed victims, then money becomes its creator's avenger. Such looters believe it safe to rob defenseless men once they passed a law to disarm them. Just that idea, you understand that the government passes laws to just take your money. Those are called taxes, right? Look at the Constitution. How much tax is in the Constitution, right? The race goes on, not in the ablest at production, but those most ruthless at brutality. When force is the standard, the murderer wins over the pickpocket, and then society vanishes in a spread of ruins and slaughter. Do you wish to know whether that day is coming? Watch money. Money is the barometer of society's virtue. When you see that trading is done, note when you see that trading is done not by consent, but by compulsion. When you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing. When you see that money is flowing to those who deal, not in goods, but in favors. When you see that men get richer by grift and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you. When you see corruption being rewarded and honesty being self-sacrifice, when honesty is becoming a self-sacrifice, may you know that your society is doomed. That is what's going on in our culture right now, if you're paying attention. Money is so noble a medium that it does not compete with guns and it does not make terms with brutality. It will not permit a country to survive as half property, half loot. Wherever destroyers appear upon men, among men, they start by destroying money, for money is men's protection and the base of moral existence. Destroyers seize gold and leave it to the owners, a counterfeit pile of paper, right? That's fiat currency. That's the difference between fiat currency, Bitcoin, and gold, right? This This kills all objective standards and delivers men into the arbitrary power of an arbitrary setter of values, right? You watch the demoralization of culture because people are fighting over pieces of fiat paper, right? People are now working for that which somebody else can just print, right? They just print money into existence. They just keep printing it. The value of the dollar goes down. So people have to scrap around harder and harder. That's what's going on in culture. They're not talking about this. Listen to the Bitcoiners, listen to the gold bugs. These are the people that are paying attention and having this conversation in culture right now. Gold was an objective value, an equivalent of wealth produced, right? It's proof of work. You have to mine it. You have to pull it out of the ground, right? It has it's semi-scarce, right? It has value because it's semi-scarce. As the value of gold, as you can trade it for more and more paper dollars, then it becomes feasible to mine more gold. And so people will then mine more gold when the value of the gold goes up. And that's why gold isn't as good as Bitcoin. Gold is a good store of value. Obviously, it's trading around $3,500 an ounce right now. 2 years ago, it was $1,800, $1,700. So it's holding its value relative to the paper dollars, backed by nothing, printable by governments, right? And they just print more of it as time goes on. That's why we're having the conversation, is to help people understand what money is and then to protect their assets so that you don't just own a melting ice cube, right? Bitcoin is better than gold because Bitcoin has a finite supply and it's incorruptible. Paper is a check. It's an IOU drawn by legal looters upon an account which is not theirs. It's upon the virtue of the victims. Watch for the day when it bounces marked, accounts overdrawn. That's what's happening in our culture right now. When you have made evil the means of survival, do not expect men to remain good. Do not expect them to stay moral and lose their lives for purpose of becoming the fodder of the immoral. Do not expect them to produce. When production is punished and looting rewarded, do not ask who destroyed the world. The people participating in the fiat, they are the ones destroying the world. Very important to understand. Hopefully you're wrapping your mind around what money is. It's virtue, right? You stand in the midst of the greatest achievements, of the greatest production, civilization. You wonder why it's crumbling around you while you're damning its life, blood, money. You look upon money as the savages did before you, and you wonder why the jungle is creeping back to the edge of your cities. Throughout men's history, money was always seized by the looters of one brand or another, whose names changed but whose method remained the same: to seize wealth by force and to keep the producers bound, demeaned, defamed, deprived of honor. That phrase about the evil of money, which you mouth with such righteous recklessness, comes from a time when wealth was produced by the labor of slaves, slaves who repeated the motions once discovered by somebody's mind and left unimproved for centuries. So long as production was ruled by force, the wealth was obtained by conquest. There was little to conquer. Yet through all the centuries of stagnation and starvation, men exalted the looters as aristocrats of the sword and aristocrats of birth, as aristocrats of the bureau and despised the producers as slaves, as traders, as shopkeepers, as industrialists. To the glory of mankind, there was, for the first and only time in history, a country of money, and I have no higher, no more reverent tribute to pay to America. For this means a country of reason, justice, freedom, production, and achievement. That's what the United States is. That's what those of us that are fighting for America are fighting for, right? Your ability to work inside, for you to work, to produce, and to bring your markets to the marketplace, and then to be able to make your life. So this conversation's a deep one, isn't it? Right? For the first time, man's mind and money were set free. That's what the American forefathers did. They set us free for the first time in world history. And there were no fortunes by conquest, but only fortunes by work. And instead of swordsmen and slaves, there appeared the real maker of wealth and greatest workers and highest types of human beings, self-made, the American industrialists. I completely recognize that people in America made money off of other people's labor in completely unfair ways. And so I'm not talking about a black or white situation. I'm talking about the opportunity for somebody to go to work, use their resources, and make something of themselves. That society in and of itself is not pushing people down. That has definitely happened in our culture. It has definitely happened in our culture. It continues to happen in our culture to certain degrees. But by and large, people have been liberated for the last nearly 200 years now, right? But and I'm not saying that it's fair, right? I'm not saying that there's equality, right? I understand the problems of culture. I understand it. So if you ask me to name the proudest distinction of Americans, I would choose, because it contains all the others. The fact that they were the people who created the phrase to make money. No other language or nation had ever used these words before. Men had always thought of wealth as a static quantity to be seized, begged, inherited, shared, looted, or obtained as a favor. Americans were the first to understand that wealth has to be created. The words to make money hold the essence of human morality. Right? So this opens up multiple cans of worms. This was written in 1957. It doesn't take into the account that the author only utilizes masculine terminology, neglects the entire conversation of slavery, right? I recognize the faults in the essay. Yet these were the words which Americans were denounced by the rotted cultures of looters. Now, the looter's credo has brought to you regard for your proudest achievement as a hallmark of shame, your prosperity as guilt. How much guilt is there if you become prosperous? If you are prosperous and you feel guilty because of what you've brought to market and what you've been able to create, that's a wonderful thing to work through. Your greatest men, the industrialists, the blackguards, and your magnificent factories at the product and property of muscular labor, the labor of whip-driven slaves like the pyramids of Egypt. The, the rotter who simplifies that, he sees no difference between the power of the dollar and the power of the whip, ought to learn the difference on his own hide, as I think he will. Until and unless you discover that money is the root of all good, you ask for your own destruction. When money ceases to be the tool by which men deal with one another, then men become the tools of men. Blood whips, guns, or dollars. Take your choice. There is no other, and your time is running out. This was written 75 years ago. Ayn Rand book Atlas Shrugged. And what we're watching right now is the continuous printing of fiat currency. So the value of the dollar is going down, and it's the cause of so much major problems inside of our culture right now. And so this is inside of our world. There's a difference between currency and money. Currency is a medium of exchange. It's a unit of account. It's portable, right? You can carry dollar bills around. You can carry a $20 bill around, right? It's durable, like a $20 bill lasts a long time. It's divisible. You can give somebody a $20 bill and they can give you a 10 and 2 5s, right? It's fungible, right? A $20 bill is a $20 bill. If right, it's same is same, right? Money is a medium of exchange. You can buy goods and services with money. So this is the difference between currency and money. They are not synonyms. Vaccines and immunization, they are not synonyms. Healing and curing are not synonyms. Money and currency are not synonyms. Money is a unit of account. It is portable, it is durable, it is divisible, it is fungible, and it stores value over long periods of time. Your $50 bill that your grandfather gave you when you were 9 years old, let's say you're 55 years old, 56 like me, that $50 will only buy probably $15, $18 worth of goods or services in the year 2025. So it has lost value over time. That's why I talk about fiat currency is a melting ice cube, right? It devalues in time. It's a hidden tax on the people that are well behaved and they're savers. If you put the money in the bank, then it decreases in value. If it goes up by 4 or 5% per year because you've got it diversified in a money market account and your $200,000 turns into $210,000 over the year, you might think that you have more money than you did the previous year. But if the devaluation of the currency is faster than the amount of money that you're getting in interest, then you're actually losing money. So this is a hidden tax on people, and it hits the savers, it hits the older people the hardest, right? So money, the difference between money and currency is that money stores value over long periods of time. That's why gold is money and fiat dollars is not money. It just happens to be true that Bitcoin is better money than gold. I mean, I'm a fan of both, right? All currency is known as fiat because there's no store of value behind the dollars. Behind the US dollars, the Chinese yuan, right? There's no assets behind it. Bitcoin is proof of work, computational energy behind a firewall of energy. It's proof of work, proof of effort. Money is proof of work, proof of effort, proof of energy. Fiat money is proof of weapons. If there's anything behind the United States fiat currency, it's proof of weapons. We have weapons and we can enforce our dictates on others because we have weapons. Understand, that might sound harsh. It just happens to be true, right? We are the world reserve currency because of Bretton Woods, World War II, right? You can dig into these things if you want. Listen to the Bitcoiners right now. They're some of the smartest people financially on the planet. Robert Breedlove and his What is Money podcast, I'm a big fan of, right? So money, the difference between money and currency is that money stores value over a long period of time. And here's the sad truth of things, and it's what we're watching right now, is that every single fiat currency and there's been thousands throughout throughout the years, they all go to zero in value. They end up being hyperinflated. And we've watched this in Argentina. We've watched it all over the place. And what is happening right now is that all of the currencies around the planet, all the fiat currencies, they're all being inflated. Whether it's the Chinese, the Japanese, the Russians, the euro dollar, the Americans, various countries in South America, everybody is printing more money. The US dollar will be a strong, it's a strong currency. It's going to remain a strong currency for the foreseeable future. It's the slowest melting ice cube of all the other currencies out there. The central banks, the private corporations print money for deficit spending, right? This inflates the volume of the currency and it reduces the value. Hopefully you understand those principles. So there are 7 stages of an economic empire. 1, a country starts out with good money, gold or silver. As the country develops economically and socially, it begins to take on more and more economic burdens by adding layers of public works. This is the beginning of deficit spending. As the economic affluence grows, so does its international influence. It begins to increase expenditures to fund a massive military to protect itself. Eventually, it puts the military to use and expenditures explode. War is money, right? The industrialists have the tendency to fund both sides of war, foment war, and they are profiteers of war. To fund the war, it steals the wealth of its people by debasing the currency, either the gold or the silver, by replacing the money with currency that can be created in unlimited quantity. That's the creation of a fiat currency. The loss of purchasing power of the expanded currency supply is sensed by the population, and the financial markets start triggering the loss of faith of currency. That's why Bitcoin was created in 2008, due to the global financial crisis that was created by the bankers here in the United States. Very close. If they would not have printed hundreds of billions of dollars, we would have had an economic nightmare globally. They printed us out of the situation, and we're all grateful that they did that. But if we had sound money, they would not have been able to create the conditions that would have caused that problem to begin with. So as people understand that the value of their fiat currency is going down, people start to put their money into durable, hard assets, gold, housing, land, Bitcoin. Right? What is an asset that will hold? What is going to store value as they print more money and the value of the dollar decreases? People are flooding in those directions right now. So as a mass movement out of the currency into precious metals and other tangible assets takes place, the currency collapses and gold and silver prices rise. Gold has doubled in price in the last 2 years, if you didn't know, right? The currency collapses, the gold and silver rise in price as they account for the huge quantity of currency that was created. And this is a massive transfer of wealth. So Bitcoin has gone up by 4x in the last 5x in the last 2 to 3 years. Bitcoin or gold has doubled in price, right? People are moving to hard assets. And so the industrial capitalists, they control the dialectic. They keep people fighting, right? They're going to divide culture, keep everybody fighting. And if they can keep everybody fighting, then they can create perpetual revolution so that they can control the population. What they don't want is inspired, creative, resourceful people that build a healthy culture. They want an unhealthy culture. And if you take a look at what we just watched through the whole COVID thing through the last 4 or 5 years, that's unhealthy, right? If you take a look at the average health of humans in just the United States, the parameters of health are going down. They want people sick, right? That's what's happening. So the industrial capitalists, they fund socialism, right? Take care of people, handouts, and so they fund socialism and ideas of socialism to foment chaos, right? I believe that in the future, when humans have developed more, we will move more and more of a socialistic way of existing, but we'll do it without force. We'll do it without coercion. We're not there yet, but I do believe that that's our future. So I'm not saying that socialism inherently is negative. We don't know how to do it yet, but if we do it utilizing coercion and force, that's not the appropriate way of doing it, right? We learned these lessons through Animal Farm, right? All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, right? These kinds of lunacy policies, they're not okay. But the industrialists, the people that are very close to the money printer, right? The big institutional banks, the Bank of International Settlements, JP Morgan, Chase Manhattan, these giant banks, they're the ones that get the money first. Then they're the ones that pay the lobbyists that create the politics. They're the ones that are in control of the government. They're the ones that are in control of the media. They're the ones that set up false dichotomies. They're the ones that keep us fighting. We need to be wise to this stuff. We need to understand this stuff so that we can navigate the complexities of the world. So the industrial capitalists fund the concepts of socialism to foment chaos. That's what they're doing. They fund both sides of revolution. They create the left fighting with the right, right? They fund this stuff so that people fight so that they can be controlled. They destroy infrastructure to reduce population. They're reducing prosperity and the standard of living. If you've been alive for the 50 years that I've been alive, you can tell that the standard of living is going down and it's getting harder and harder to make it in this world. I really feel for all the youngsters these days trying to figure out how to buy their first house. That's a challenge, right? Because what are they doing? They're centralizing power. They're centralizing power. They're going to convert everything to a digital dollar. It's going to be a social there's going to be a social credit score thermodynamically coupled with exclusive electronic money. You watch and they'll use it as a greater control mechanism because they're centralizing power to control your behavior and take your freedoms away, right? And what they do is it's the theme is like perpetual injustice, and they control the narrative. So, small proofs of this. The Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened. That's what got us into the Vietnam War. Our ship was not attacked by the North Vietnamese, right? Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. Own that. Know that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. That was a lie. And that was told to us by all the mainstream media, right? To foment war, right? We want to call these are not mistakes. These are purposeful lies carried out by the media to foment war and chaos, right? SARS-CoV-2, it did not come from nature. We were saying this in January of 2020. We were saying that this was man-made. They didn't make a mistake, everybody. They didn't make a mistake. They purposefully lied. What are they doing with these kinds of things? What's the purpose behind it? Those are things for you to make up, right? But that's the truth of the situation. And the deal is that there's a war on for your mind. There's a war on for your health, right? And the thing is that you cannot win a war that you don't know that you're in. If you don't know that you're in a battle, if you can't see the landscape, if you can't see the battlefield, then you may not know that you're inside of a war. Maybe that war is health. Maybe that war is for the way that you think, feel, behave, conduct your life. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to end on this note here. I've touched on Bitcoin a little bit throughout this episode. These are good books, whether it's The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard, The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, or The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. These are the best books that I'm aware of for Bitcoin. I would generally say that if you put 50 hours into studying what Bitcoin is, then you'll probably allocate 10% of your savings in the direction of Bitcoin. The more you study, the more the greater the likelihood of the percentage goes up. So you want to get yourself nicely informed on that. And so I really appreciate everybody listening to any of these clips or to this podcast. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.